Key concept number one, we're going to begin with variables. Variables are characteristics of human behavior, and these characteristics differ from individual to individual. There are different categories of variables in the sense that we can collect different kinds of information and kind of categorize them into different groups based on what it is that we are exploring. And so one of those categories are demographic variables, which include things like age, gender, ethnicity, marital status, etc. Now, when we're describing how these characteristics differ from individual to individual, what we're saying is, for example, in these demographic variables, age differs from individual to individual, their gender identity, their ethnicity, marital status, etc. Now, it's not to say that every single person has a differing marital status, but rather we collect these types of demographic information from individuals, and then we categorize them, we group them together to create groups that we might be studying in this behavioral statistics context. Psychological variables include things like personality traits, attitudes, beliefs, etc. Behavioral variables might include habits, choices, actions. Social variables include close friends, social media connections, frequency of family contact, and the economic variables might include things like wealth, debt levels, spending patterns, etc. These lists associated with each of these different categories, so age, gender, ethnicity, personality traits, attitudes, beliefs, etc., they're not intended to be exhaustive. These are not all the things that are included in demographic variables. These are not all the things included in psychological variables. I just wanted to give you an idea of the types of variables of information that can be included in each of these areas. In this course, I'm not going to ask you to differentiate between demographic versus psychological versus behavioral versus social versus economic. I'm not going to ask you to draw that distinction. I just wanted to give you a sense of what it is that we can understand as different categories of characteristics, right? These different variables. And again, I want to emphasize this point that these characteristics differ from individual to individual. And that's the point of collecting this data so that we get a sense of how it is that we can most accurately, when we talk about inferential statistics, which we'll get to later in this first module. Inferential statistics is where we're able to take our information, collected from a smaller group of individuals, to then generalize to, larger populations. But we'll get into the details of that in a little bit. The reason I wanted to, talk about these variables is because as we move throughout this course, we're going to be collecting this type of information, and we're going to be conducting a statistical analyses using this type of information. So this term, this key concept variable, is a term that I want you to commit to memory, right? Because this is something that is a term that we're going to continue to use throughout the semester, and so it's important that we begin to, really practice our, I'm gonna call it, our identities as behavioral statisticians, social scientists, in part by using, getting comfortable using the language of social science. So when we describe variables and when we talk about variables, remember that we are referring to characteristics of human behavior.